This is Tony Ward, and you are listening to the MLVC podcast, the Madonna podcast. I think I got that right, yeah?
Yeah, you did good. You did good. That's not, yeah.
Yay for me.
And hey, everybody, this is Stefan. Thanks for joining us for another episode of MLVC, the Madonna podcast, your place for all things Madonna, Louise, Veronica Ciccone. As you just heard, today on the show, we are joined by model, actor, and artist, Mr. Tony Ward himself. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hello, guys. How you doing? Thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you for joining. I know you're a busy man, so.
I'm trying to stay busy these days, yeah.
Yeah, and how are things in LA today? You look...
It's a little gray.
You look well for LA.
I'm doing okay. It's a little grayish out today, a little bit cooler, and that's nice. It was boiling hot the other day, so a little reprieve for the moment.
It looks like you're dressed for summertime weather.
Yeah, I like it.
You got is that one of your tank tops?
I just cut everything, all of my clothes. I just destroy. It's an old thing from my childhood, I guess, and my bodybuilding days. I used to make little string tank tops. Mm-hmm. Back in the day.
For those not watching, Tony's in a barely bare tank top. So
yeah.
I would expect nothing less. Thank you.
Yes, I like exposing my nipples these days. For some reason, whatever.
And you've got lots of tattoos. When did you start getting tattoos?
I started getting tattoos at around 24. I had a girlfriend that I was totally in love with, and she was a little chain smoking party girl, and she introduced me to, all of the fun things of life. Yeah,
including tattoos,
including like all of her best friends it was like the kind of little white boy gangsters in Los Angeles, and they all had tattoos, and I wanted to be like them. So
when did you get the Mr.
I got my
Ward?
very first tattoo. That's a skull, and it's by a quite famous LA tattoo artist named Mark Mahoney. He did my first 3 tattoos. And what was your question? Oh,
when did you get the Mr. Ward? Yeah. Oh, is it Tony Ward or Mr. Ward?
No, the Mr. Ward. I got the Mr. Ward. It's Mr. Ward. They would. I saw like in the Hispanic culture, it's very prison and convict kind of tattoos. It would be Mr. Lopez or Mr. something like that. So I had some friends that were around in that world, and it was something that I wanted to honor my father. And it was probably 96 around. It was just after I had shot Hustler White. No, just prior, right? Because I had it for Hustler White. So it was just prior to doing Hustler White. It was quite brand new at the time. And it was funny. I was in Amsterdam at a tattoo convention, and I got the tattoo from a San Diego tattoo artist.
Oh, funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we've got a lot of ground to cover, and I want to sort of go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to the very beginning. You started your career professionally as a model. How did you get started in modeling?
Okay, how I started getting model. I had no idea what a model was. I was very young and naive. My biggest dream was to own a gym. I worked in a gym. I worked out in a gym for hours and hours and hours to build the body that was to become, what it was, and celebrated and iconified in some way. But I started training in middle school, and it's something I was obsessed with, martial arts and the body stuff. I was walking around in a skimpy, tank top one day at in my first year of college. It was right out of high school. So I was 18 years old, and a history teacher approached me and said, "Oh my God, you're beautiful." And I was like, "What are you talking? What?" And he's like, I can make you a star." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? What's a star?" I was so naive. And he said, "Well, I'm a photographer, and I would love to photograph you." And he commenced to educate me about, art. And, at that time, I was I built my body because you know, in all honesty, I really didn't like myself. I didn't like my face. I didn't like, so my first real obsession in my life was to train my body to make up, to compensate for like
Sure.
what I was looking at in the mirror. I wasn't too pleased with. I had big buck teeth. I had this face in my teeth. My teeth were very crooked. I had this big nose, and I just didn't. I didn't like that. So I had to like, yeah, I had to train.
Isn't it funny to think that we see ourselves so drastically different? You know, so
Yeah.
here, I mean, you build a career off of how you look, and to think that at the time you weren't happy with that.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, I guess it's like childhood. You know, I mean, not to be all soup over serious, but it's truth. You know, we grow up with trauma. We grow up with, you know, some of us have can have very broken homes and, you know, very bad experiences in our life,
Sure.
and some people have a quite normal life too. But we all are consumed with our humanity and finding what's our purpose in life and all of that stuff, and you know, and you know, have great fears and stuff. And the funny thing about that was that my older brother was beautiful, like so amazing. Like, and all the girls would say, "Oh my God, your brother." He was a year older than me. I was a midget when I was a kid, super tiny. And my brother was like literally a foot taller than me. And he was only 1 year older than me. And so he was the fine one, the gorgeous guy. And they called me cute. And they're like, "You're like a little bunny rabbit," because I had these crazy teeth. And I just despised my face after that. And that
Yeah.
happened when I was like 7 years old, you know, like when I had that kind of awareness, like
Yeah.
self-awareness, you know, and then, you know, in some years later, um, I found these porno magazines, right? You know, like the very typical, like behind a dumpster or something behind a 7-Eleven when I was a kid by myself. And I found these, and there were some Playboys and Playgirls. And so the one that impacted me the most was the Playgirls, and they had images. It was the first time I was like, "Whoa, that's possible!" And they had pictures from the early days of bodybuilding, and they had Steve Reeves, and he was gorgeous. He was beautiful to look at, but he had this amazing, and it was pre, you know, steroids and
Right.
there was no such thing really as, I mean, there was they would call it strength training, you know. So he had this amazing body, and he was like one of the early ones that was actually kind of bulky and cut, and he looked like Hercules. He was beautiful. And when I saw that, it just made my heart pound. And I think I fell in love the first time with a male. I was like, "Whoa, and then I was, and literally inside, I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna
Mm.
be that." And that's kind of kicked off. And that, as well as being kind of obsessed with martial arts and Bruce Lee, because I watched all the Bruce Lee movies. So I taught myself martial arts by literally reading magazines. Black Belt magazine was like my Bible at the time. And yeah, and I taught myself martial arts because I would train for hours and hours and hours, and I'd copy the pictures in the books, and I did the same thing with bodybuilding. I learned that way.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you got involved in modeling. I mean, I guess obviously it was
Yeah,
you, you got you you.
totally derailed. Probably. Sorry, I
Oh no, it's
apologize for
fine. It's fine.
butting in.
That's half the fun. We're all over the place.
Yeah,
So you got involved in modeling. I mean, obviously, we know the outcome. You know, you.
yeah,
P.S. Spoiler alert: Tony Ward became a famous model.
yeah,
So obviously, your working out paid off, and as a model, you had the opportunity to work with the amazing Herb Ritts, who
yeah,
defined fashion and photography back in the late 80s and 90s, as well as Stephen Klein and Stephen Meisel. And I mean, there's tons of, you've worked with
yeah.
everybody in the industry.
Yeah,
And
Bruce Weber. I just like
right.
to mention Bruce Weber. Greg Gorman, a great, beautiful friend of mine, made some of those '80s iconic imageries of me. And just to backtrack 2 seconds, because
Sure.
I want to honor. So Joe House was the history teacher. He introduced me to a few other photographers in the Bay Area that photographed me at that time. Some of these pictures, I'll talk later, end up on in my archive of my OnlyFans. Anyway, these people were vital and important. And one of the men was named James Armstrong, and he was an actor, a theater actor, and he became like my surrogate father because I didn't have a father from 7 years old. And he guided me to a man, Bob Stickle, who became my manager. And he was really the one that made me, he was like, I'm what this guy said, Joe House said about you, this teacher, I'm going to realize it for you. So he put me into acting classes, ballet, jazz, tap dance, all this stuff like in those early days before I even came to LA. And Bob, it was literally Bob who invested in my career. They got my photographs, my original Z cards is what they used to call them, the headshots, right? Yeah, composites. And Bob made a fashion, a really bad one, but a fashion model card, a sporty one, and a nude one. And he was an old he worked in the advertising industry and left that industry to manage me. And he saturated the country with images of me, and that's how my picture got onto the desk of an agent that Herb eventually saw. And Ricky Castro has an integral part of introducing me to Herb Ritz as well. And Bruce Weber. So Bruce Weber was actually the very first big photographer that I had worked with. I flew out to New York, did Père Louis, which was a big fashion magazine at the time, and that's a very iconic image of me in the white shorts sitting profile, and it's a very beautiful statuesque picture. And then there's another one where I'm standing on the roof, and you see the Empire State Building. These two became postcards, and they were all over every gay man's refrigerator at the time.
Right.
And as well as the cult magazine that came from Joe House, the history teacher. He introduced me to James French, who created Cult Studios, and that is some of my early archive images as well.
Nice.
So
yeah. And so what was it like being, I'm just going to narrow in on some of the photographers that maybe our audience knows, who obviously worked with Madonna, Herb Ritz and Stephen Klein and Stephen Meisel. I mean, those are huge photographers. I mean, you've worked with so many huge people. What was it like to be able to work with those photographers back in the day? Because I mean, they were huge, but like it was also sort of like the infancy as well,
Yeah. Well, something you kind of alluded to earlier, that about how Herb Ritz was a very impactful fashion photographer. But what was very vital, it was Bruce Weber, Herb Ritz, Skrybneski, Greg Gorman. There were these gay photographers. I don't know if Skrybneski is actually, I scratched that. I don't know. But there are definitely a handful of these men, especially Herb and Bruce. They iconified male, not erotica, sensuality, to sell men's underwear. That was and men into the fashion world. It was a time when it was really pushed forward in the advertising industry, because they were like, we can use these hot men, these beautiful men, these dreamy, fantasies for women to go buy their men underwear or go buy their men clothes,
or gay men to
exactly. So it was introducing for the first time, really, this a more overt sexuality and a homosexuality as well. It was breaking. They were in the very early stages of breaking new ground, utilizing men and their bodies for that purpose.
Yeah, I mean, as a closeted teen, even to myself, I resonated so well with those photographs that you and like all of those photographers were putting out. I mean, like it's just they were so beautiful, and there was a sensuality and an accessibility too. I think you sort of like they had just they honored people and the male figure, and they were just beautiful lighting and
There was a time it felt very, to me, I felt like it was being a part of a art of creating art, where we're so saturated with beautiful images today, but there's something quite empty and missing somehow.
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
and for me, it was because these were great artists, but they had, and I've talked about this in other interviews, but they had amazing art teams. They had
Right.
amazing support teams that helped them create these like super amazing iconic images that were special,
Hmm.
and it wasn't oversaturated. They, like, you looked forward to seeing what the next Calvin Klein campaign was or whatever it was, right? You were like, you anticipated it. You were like looking forward to it as a model when you would work. That was like, you couldn't wait to see that your ad pop up, and you'd shoot it and you'd have to wait 6 months or a
Right,
year
right,
before it
right.
would come out. And you're just like, oh, please come on, I need that boost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super super exciting time, and exhilarating in a way that we're in a different time now.
Hmm.
I don't want to
Yeah.
piss on today, but
No, no. Well,
there's
it
something
was.
quite.
I mean, I learned photography on film. I mean, we didn't have
Yeah,
digital cameras when I
same.
learned, and it was just such a different medium back then. There was a bit more time that you had to put into it, and like
Yeah.
into the initial setup of photographs and settings, because you needed to get it right, because it wasn't as disposable. You couldn't just click, 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 and figure it out in Photoshop afterwards. It
Yeah,
was.
yeah, definitely. I love, kind of talking about like Herb. In a way, it was so funny because he would let me sit in and look at his, I'll try to do this quick, but he would let me sit in and what he was like, looking over his contacts, like and what he would do is like he would print hundreds of test prints to look at them big. So he
Right.
would look on a contact sheet, but then he'd print up a bunch of photos. He shot a jillion photos back in that time. And the greatest thing was that, back then you had no overseers. You didn't have somebody standing over your head. Basically, it was like, he would shoot a bunch of stuff, and the clients were not allowed on the set. They were, but in the early days, nobody was allowed on the set. There were no clients there. You didn't have to check on, and then they would send maybe like one or two Polaroids to the client and say, "This is the roundabout what you're gonna get,"
Right. Right.
you know. I love that kind of, it took that time, and that was honored. Like, these people were like total rock stars, and they were
Hmm.
treated that way. And now it's like you're kind of just a worker bee. You're just like a hired hand to like serve the fucking man. Pardon my French,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's 100% different thing.
Yeah.
Different experience as a model, like being there and experiencing it, is you didn't get to look at a picture as it was being, you could, if the photographer let you, he'd like let you take a look at the Polaroid or something like that. But nobody saw, he didn't even know, he would take the
Right.
pictures, and then it'd have to be processed and you have to take a look at it. And there was a whole thing, and then there was retouching, and like very it was time intensive,
Yeah,
to create.
the instant gratification that we have today is not overlooked. Like, I every now and again will get a roll of 35 millimeter film and pop it in my old Minolta just for shits and giggles. And
Yeah.
every time I hit the shutter, I'll go to look to see what I got, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's fast forward a little bit
Yeah.
to, so Herb Ritz obviously got into music video thanks to Madonna and her Cherish video, and
Yeah.
that was a video and a song that you were a part of. You got to play one of the mermen.
Yeah.
How did your appearance in that music video come to be?
Okay. I had known already Madonna. I'd met her a couple of times at Herb's studio.
Hmm.
And a funny story about Madonna, just real quick, is when I was a kid, when I first saw Madonna, when MTV launched, I knew in my heart I was going to be with that person. I was like, immediately I saw that and I'm like, that's mine. I know there was like such a powerful connection way prior to me actually meeting this person. And but really funny, that was that was right when MTV dropped. So when was that? 81, 82?
82, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so not to like 5 years later is when I actually met her for the first time, which is so wild, like the powerful feeling that I had, and then running into her in parties because I went to a couple of parties, and I like in passing would see the person, and you know, shook hands a couple of times, and I was just terrified, like, oh my God, that's you. And, and then we just, each time we saw each other, it was a little bit more comfortable, and we would be able to have a couple of words. But I think, Madonna thought I was, Herb's toys, little boy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were very close friends. We were super, super close. When I moved to LA, we became very close friends, me and Herb and I. And we started testing from the first job. My first job with Herb was German Vogue, and then straight off the bat, I started doing the test shots, which was like the chain shot and the hanging with the rope and stuff like that. Those were the earliest shots, and so he introduced me to Madonna. I honestly I can't remember if I auditioned for Cherish. I must have. She passed me up on the one that was with Cameron. Why am I blanking on it? It was like one of the really big ones.
One of her music videos, you mean?
Yeah, one of her music videos. It was just prior to Cherish.
You mean like Express Yourself?
Not was it? Maybe, yeah.
That was the one right before Cherish, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. Yeah.
Well,
with
that was with all the men in the big like
Yes.
industrial setting. And
Yes. So yeah, that she passed on me for that one, and then she hired me for Cherish.
She wanted you wet.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh well, no, but I mean, you would have been wet and Express Yourself too. So I guess maybe,
Yeah.
I guess you just you seemed like you should be in the ocean, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So and I think the most incredible thing about that for me, because I hadn't known her other than seeing her on on TV and the music videos and things like that, was seeing her turn on because we were at that point we were kind of very casual and conversational, and she was very easy to talk to. And when she went out there and sat on the sand and the music came up, it blew me away. I was just like kind of in awe of like how this little creature turned into this magical creature like right in front of my eyes, and just like immediately became this superstar, rolling around in sand, being wet, and I was just completely blown away. And maybe that was when I kind of really like like it hit me really deep in my heart. And what was really crazy is maybe I shouldn't say it. I don't know. She went home with one of the other boys that night, I think. So that wasn't the love connection. The love connection happened later on when I went to Herb and Madonna used to do joint birthday parties, and it was in the Santa Monica birthday party when we met, and the sparks started to flicker.
Ignite.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so real quick on Cherish before we move into some sparky territory.
Yeah.
What was it a challenge to swim in the merman costume? Did you have to swim in the merman?
It's so funny. Everybody thinks that we would have died if we had to swim in that thing. It was literally about between 80 to 100 pounds for those things. They were created especially for it. They're very heavy. And there was Mark Findlay was one of the models that Herb photographed at the time. I think he was ex-military, and then two other Navy SEALs were hired to swim in them because you would die, because
Right.
being out in the ocean and swimming with that thing was like you had to be like a super athlete. So
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
the guys that pop up, we weren't wearing them. We were
yeah.
just
Okay,
popping. We
okay.
were just popping up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I couldn't tell if that was actually you wearing it in the underwater sequences, and I was like,
Yeah.
that would be a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge to swim in the ocean with just like your body. So,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for that, fans.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
The spoiler.
So your next appearance for Madonna was in "Justify My Love," the music video
Yes.
directed by Jean-Baptiste Mondino.
Genius.
It's one of her most iconic music videos, and I think not only just because of the controversy it created, but because it was such a different side of Madonna that we had not really seen pretty much. It was a
Yeah.
world she hadn't shown us. It was a world that MTV wasn't really showing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
they did not show it. They did not want to show it.
true.
They
They did
didn't
not
show it
show
at
it. Right. Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
It took,
I think I saw it on Nightline when she did the interview on Nightline, and they showed it
right.
before.
Yeah.
What
And
memory?
it got banned by the Pope as well, or something like,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
it was like struck down.
Yeah. People were not
God
happy.
strikes you down.
What
Yeah.
memories do you have from working on that video?
Nothing. No. I remember I was, it for at that point, my, having a relationship, because we were in a relationship at that time, and I think I was just overwhelmed. I was,
Mm,
I hadn't stopped being naive. My life had changed quite a bit from my time in entering, becoming a model, and then doing this video and meeting Madonna. But I was kind of like in awe, and just kind of like, I can't believe I'm here, kind of a feeling. Um, it was an amazing experience. I had worked with John Baptiste before, and after that, he was an amazing guy, super, super talented. Um, I remember prior to us going, we talked a lot about sexual fantasy, Madonna and I, and like, so we had, from our conversation, I think it inspired Madonna, because we just kind of went all over the place, like, what's sexy, what's exciting, what am I,
yeah.
what is like, kind of scary, and like, and something to like expose about our humanity and ourselves, and our fantasies not being, something that we should be afraid of and ashamed of and in fear of. So, and yeah, it was very, to me, like some people say, it's like, oh my God, it's just so erotic. To me now, it's like so funny, because it's so soft core, it's
Oh, totally.
so soft. And at the time, it was so like, oh my God, you're teetering right over the cliff edge with this one. You're pushing it too far, and it's like so sophomore. But I
Well,
love it.
did
It's
you know that at the time, like when the controversy was erupting, were you sort of like, why is everyone making such a big stink out of this?
kind of course, but Madonna, being the genius that she is, she's like, she knew how and felt very comfortable and confident, I believe, to like push things and like slam on the brakes right before going over the edge. And and that was her, man. That was some drive inside of her. Like, this is how I have to do. This is how I have to do this. Always. I have to be on some edge, pushing something, and that fed her creatively and everything, and then, that leading to the sex book, which came a little while after,
Yep.
Was, it piqued her own, like you could tell, like the sex book came, off of that. There was a sexual, you know, revolution happening inside of Madonna as well. There was something like, I'm feeling this, and I'm like wanting to like express this out into the world, and and keeping it fantasy and fantastic and beautiful was key with
Hmm.
Stephen Meisel. You know,
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I love about both. I mean, both Justify My Love and the Sex Book. They're just so beautiful to look at. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, admittedly, definitely had a crush on you when you were ripping your shirt off very seductively in the "Justify My Love" video, and I was just like, again, as a closeted teenager, being exposed to this, I was like, yes, Madonna, yes to this direction, because it was like,
Yeah.
it was feeding us with Madonna, and then as a gay kid, like we got all these like hot men being thrown at us all the time, and like I
Yeah.
always loved that about Madonna, in that no other pop stars, like pop stars would have hot men in their videos, but Madonna would go there. Like Madonna, like
Yeah.
she would make out with the hot guy in the video, and
Yeah.
it was always like fulfilling our own little hidden fantasies that we couldn't live out at the time. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, with the sex book. So that was something that no other pop star had the guts to do back then, and
Yeah.
I don't think that any pop star today would have the guts to do it now. What was it like to be on set for some of those photos, and what was the process like for you
I
to be
mean,
involved in that?
it was, for me, I had a lot of mixed feelings. I was very titillated, of course, and to get to play act with, somebody I was totally in love with. We had broken up by that time, you know, we were in touch with each other. We were kind of fakey, having a loosey goosey like relationship, but not, and whatever. She had moved on and done things and all that stuff, and so had I. But we were super connected still, and there was something really strong and powerful between us. And to this day, I can't even really. The only thing I have is she went to one of her favorite psychics once and said, "I'm your mother in a past life." So,
Mm,
yeah. Which was, kind of telling and really interesting, because that was our relationship. I'm not so much younger. I'm only 4 years younger than Madonna, but the way it began, it was a very nurturing and very like mommy, son
mm,
relationship in a way. And I don't think it was intended even on her part. It's like you're my equal, but then I because of just where I was at in my life, I think I just became the sub.
sure,
I was
sure.
just, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but an amazing experience. I was jealous like crazy at the time of her being with other people and having this adventure of her own, So, yeah, mad jealousy, and because my heart was still so for this person. So it was painful. Honestly, it was painful. But at the same time, I loved being there with her and sharing the experience that I had with her. And it was super intimate. It was super, and playful, yeah, it was a really amazing experience. I'm really happy that I had my experience with the work that I did with Madonna,
Hmm.
because it was quite jaw-dropping to just see how this human, like, turns it on, turns her, because I experienced the human being. I
Right.
experienced I believe we were really in love with each other, and I think that yeah, yeah, it was very different than what, it was funny, like when people would say to me, "Oh, what's it like to, pardon my French, fuck Madonna?" I'm like, "Fuck you, dude. You're talking about the person I'm in love with. Shut the fuck up."
Right.
Which is, of course you would hear that from straight guys, especially, and even gay men at times. And it's like, that's personal. It's none of your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, props to you for being in the book. I mean, some of your imagery that you're in with her are some of the most iconic images. I mean, I think the nipple
Yeah.
ring one,
Super hot.
and where
The
she's
licking.
biting your ass. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I have an ex, I just want to pretend they don't even exist. So props to you for letting an ex bite your ass. I mean, that's,
Yeah. Right.
um, but, and then funnily enough, so we thought sex would just remain in the 90s, but in the fall of 2022, Saint Laurent did a re-release of the sex book. There was only 800
Yeah.
copies that were recreated and made available, with funds going towards Madonna's Raising Malawi Foundation. You
Yeah.
got to go to the party
Yeah.
at in Miami. What was it like revisiting the book again after all that time? Because I think the thing that we loved as fans and as a Madonna podcast was that book was so like looked down upon when she released it, and she did not
Right.
get credit for the brilliance of what she was doing with that book. And now 30 years later, it's finally being celebrated. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was so jealous I couldn't get to go because I wanted to see some of those images. I mean, I have a book, but to be able to
Yeah.
see those images so blown up and so
Yeah.
big, it must
That
have
was
been
amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was super awesome. Um, Yeah, she was on one, boy, that night. She was energetic, believe me. And it was so wild because it'd been so long since I'd seen her. So it was like, we're just in different worlds today, and
Yeah,
she's become a different human almost. It's really wild. It was a really like touching experience and like very very different than what my relationship was
sure.
with her before. And she's, over years we lost track, lost contact for over years and years, but out of the blue we would contact and talk to each other. And yeah, and it always felt like, it always felt like somebody I could go to when I was like in kind of need about something. She helped me a
Mhm.
lot. My daughter was having a really rough time, and I reached out to her about, some help with that for my daughter, and she was really amazing about that and stuff. And I'll always remember that, and I'll always remember like that connection and who that person was. It's just
Mhm.
very different today.
Sure. I mean,
Just
but I think that's life, I mean, I think
yeah,
we grow up, and I mean, I run into friends that I haven't seen in many, many years, and
yeah,
there's that semblance of what you were, but you also realize it
yeah.
no longer exists anymore. And I think that dichotomy is a strange thing to grapple with when,
Yeah, I think the one thing walking away from that, and that was amazing. The book's amazing. The prints were unreal, and it was really nice to reunite and like, kind of hold on to each other and walk around and take pictures with each other and stuff. And it was really cool. Um, but the walk away was that, what was I was going to say something. Oh my gosh. um, yeah, just like a want to like have just me and her time. And
Mhm.
it wasn't what that was,
Right. Well, it was
it's
so
like to
public. I mean, it's a
have a
party,
have a sense, right, have a sense and a feeling of like a real connection, because it felt a little bit, disconnected when I
Sure.
went there. And I was kind of like hungry to like sit with this person and have like a real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's still time, you never
Yeah,
know. You never know.
as
Maybe
long as we're
maybe
both
not at
stuck
the
in air.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So non-Madonna, and I have to ask about this because these were two of my favorite videos from the 90s. So you were in George Michael's Fast Love video, and you were also in the Spice Girls Say You Be There video.
Yeah.
What was it like to be in those videos? Did you get to meet George and hang out with
George
George?
had been friends with for several years prior to that. He was such an amazing guy, so sweet, super, super sweet. So we would run into each other and like hang out at parties and stuff like that. So we had known each other. And wildly, I was on drugs during that time. I was in my wily days, let's say. But I was just in Berlin doing some press junket for Hustler White,
Mm-hmm.
and I dyed my hair. I befriended a dominatrix in Berlin, and she dyed my hair. And then I went to London. I think it was in London. I was in London, and I was hanging out with some friends of mine in London, and I got called to do the George Michael video, and I did that. And he was a dream. He is such a beautiful, amazing person, and he just like, go have fun, man. Like dance and like enjoy yourself. And it was super friggin' hot, and I love it. I love myself with the blonde hair. It's the first time I was like I'm okay as a blonde. I had no idea. I
Yeah,
was like,
I was shocked to see you pop up in that video because I felt like you hadn't been in a video that I'd noticed in a while, and then all of a sudden there
yeah,
you were, and I was like, and he's blonde.
yeah, yeah. That was some fun. That was super fun.
And how was it like working with the Spice Girls?
The Spice Girls. Let me see.
That must have been a hot shoot because that was in the desert.
It totally was a hot shoot. I didn't know too much about the Spice Girls, and other than like I wasn't a huge fan. um, I was super in my punk rock stage at that time, but they were super super sweet, and it was you know I mean, it was like it ended up being. I think it was funny because I was like, "This is gonna be crap," and it was just my mentality at the time. And I kind of and then when it came out, I'm like, "No, that's fucking kind of
Yeah,
good.
no, it was good. It's a good
That's a
video.
rad video,
Yeah.
actually." So yeah, I was like happy with in the end with that. My favorite part was driving that car around and doing donuts and shit in the desert.
I was surprised you weren't in it more. I felt like they sort of shortchanged your character in that video.
Yeah, just a hair.
I was like, let's show less of the sporty spice and let's get back to Tony Ward.
I know. Some people just didn't have a clue quite,
Yeah.
how to hustle the hot men.
Stupid film editor.
Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned Hustler White, and I did want to talk about that. So your very first feature film acting role was in a movie by Bruce LaBruce and Rick Castro called Hustler White, where you were the lead. Tell us about your experience working on Hustler White. What was it like to move from acting in a music video to acting in a feature film?
Yeah. Well, at the time, I had studied a lot of acting. Um, I when I met Madonna, I I started studying a lot. I studied in New York. I took acting very serious, and this was all prior to me doing Hustler White. I auditioned for many big films against some big actors because, of course, being the boy of Madonna, it opened doors, a lot of doors for me, and I got really close, and 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 I just kind of got like, nah, maybe I don't care about acting so as much as I thought, and and then Ricky asked, they had cast somebody else for the role of Monty. His name was actually Monty. And he fell out at that last minute. He got chicken or something or whatever, disappeared. And they called me on a kind of a whim. And so Ricky was, you know, instrumental of bringing me on board. And he kind of just knew I could pull it off. And I had to think about for a second, I'm like, I'm an actor. Should I do something like this? Where like it was all like you have to question yourself because is it the right thing to do for your career and all that stuff. And in the end, it actually affected me for that time in a negative way. Like they were like, "Oh, you played a hustler." It was such a weird, you know, stupid paradigm that they had at that time. Like you couldn't, have like
Well, like the
overt
role that you take.
sexuality.
Exactly.
You
Like
know,
what you do in the film suddenly becomes who you are outside of the film for some
yeah.
reason.
Yeah, they're very stuck in like like how actors will get stuck in a characterization of themselves, right? Just like you said, and they can't, in the industry is like, no, this is bankable, and you're a comedian, so you can't be serious actor. Or you're a dramatic actor, you can't do that. So they pigeonholed. It was a fucking weird device of Hollywood, yuck.
Yeah.
But that's changed. Thankfully, things have broadened and opened up, amazingly these days, which is super cool, I suppose. Yeah.
Did you enjoy the feature film experience?
Yeah.
I mean, you've acted a couple of times since
Yeah,
then.
I've done some. My favorite role was. I'm going to talk about Hustler White, but my favorite role was Story of Jen, and it was a French Canadian production. Half French, half English. The characters inside, and that was like one of my best experiences as a real actor for me, because for me in my mind doing Hustler White was like a fun romp, which is actually what it is, a fun romp down Santa Monica Boulevard in a time frame
Right.
that was, it was a a dying field, if you will, like yeah. And
It's a great snapshot, that movie,
yeah.
of a time that, I mean, I guess that it still exists now, but the parameters for how those people find that, it's about a sex worker,
Yeah,
and
of course.
sex work has changed drastically since then.
Dramatically, it went
It's
all digital and online, and
exactly.
and yeah, there's some kind of real amazing life, you know stuff happening on the boulevard back in those days, which was really, really amazing. I would go out with friends, a couple of my best friends at the time, and we used to hang out on Santa Monica Boulevard at, oh God, the Yukon? I think it was a, I want to say the Yukon, or there was some diner there, and it was the diner that we shot the diner scene, right, in
Mm.
Foster White. And we used to hang out there, and all the trans hookers, prostitutes, would hang out there. And me and my buddies, after we would like go and party, instead of going to after hours, we'd go hang out and like chat and hang out with the hookers. And it was fucking a blast. We had like so much fun. We'd go sometimes with them and do some crazy. Yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly, and do some crazy stuff. Allegedly, you can bleep all that out. But yeah, it was like such an amazing like energy that just doesn't exist there anymore. Which
Yeah.
is, that's what I love about Hustler White, and it's kind of like it's just a comic, like nice, humorous, feeling film from the time. It's very yeah, it
It's a
harkens
zany
back to
movie.
something really nice. Yeah, I love that. I love that
I remember
aspect.
I think I had to buy it because you couldn't rent it, but I think
Yeah,
I bought it, and when I watched it, I was like, "What is this? What is happening in this movie?"
yeah, yeah. I love that. I love that stuff. Bruce is awesome. He's awesome with how he inputs his humor into what he does. Let me see what else. Also, I thought I sucked in the movie, so I couldn't remember my lines. I was like, it was so funny because like I would have to redo it over. Like they had to burn so much, film on me and stuff like that. It was so funny. But it and and I just watched it again recently. I went out to this party and it was showing on a screen, and I'm like, damn, I have to really watch that again because they were just showing like excerpts of it, and I watched it with my ex, and and I was like, oh shoot, I actually wasn't that bad in this movie. I was like, I kind of had like this feeling like, oh, I was so. It wasn't even like the movie. I loved the movie, and I'm like, but I sucked in it. I was horrible, and
Well,
and I did, and I
we're our worst critics, right?
yeah, totally. But now, and it's so funny because I've had fans of my career, my modeling career, and stuff like that over the years go like, "Oh my God, that changed my life. That's such an amazing. You were so amazing. It's the greatest acting ever." And I'm like, "What movie did you watch? I don't get it." But honestly, I looked at it recently, and I'm like, I really wasn't that bad. It was really okay. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I don't. I had it on a VHS tape. I don't even know where that VHS tape. I couldn't even watch it if I had it. So,
Yeah.
well, so let's talk about your current venture, which
Okay.
is the creation of an OnlyFans account. So, what
Yes.
prompted you to start this channel, and how is it different than most of the other channels that we all know are on OnlyFans?
Right. Okay. So it's a big one, and it's like I'm conjuring and evolving a mission statement around this thing. So, of course, I had to. I I've had some, major life change. I got sober a couple of years ago,
Congrats.
and thank you. And that started having me reassess life entirely. And I've had periods of long-term sobriety before, and something didn't kick for me. Something there was some kind of changes that needed to happen in me that didn't in my previous sobrieties, and this is a very different thing. I'm 61 years old. I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? What's my purpose in life? And I had to really consider that, and I've been thinking about OnlyFans for about 5 years, and I had people like, you should really do this. You could shape it into what you want. And I was just, I don't know. I don't know if I like the idea. I don't know if other people like would judge me. I was worried. I was all consumed with how people were going to, what they were going to think of me, how they were going to judge me, and all of that.
Sure.
And then and my ex, because I'm currently totally in love with somebody, and we had to step away from each other recently, and I was very concerned about this person not appreciating where I was going with, my future path. And I had to just surrender it all. I just had to surrender what my children, what my family, what my friends were going to think of me. And I just had to go, you know what? This is something, it's about me taking possession of myself and my humanity and my sexuality. In my most recent relationship, I had my mind exploded. I was seeing a trans man, so it exploded my mind. I've never had an experience like this in my life. It changed how I viewed myself and my sexuality, my sense of myself, my sense of my fears in my life about myself, and my age.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I want first and foremost I want it to be performance art. I want it to be an inspiration to others, and also on so many different levels of self-love, self-acceptance. On every level, we grow as men, and all humans, men, women, others, we all grow up with shame, fear, and we're consumed by it. We're
Yeah.
consumed by what happens in our world, and it can really shape us in a bad way, and it can make us present ourselves in a in a non-accepting way of like, this is life, man. This is my humanity, and I have to learn how to live with this, and I have to, and then fall in love with myself, fall in love with my process of my life. What is my purpose? I don't know. But for me, like, launching into this is me taking charge of
Mm-hmm.
my imagery, myself. There was always been a middleman. I was a servant, right? And in times of my life, I felt like I was a slave. I was enslaved by my career, by my job. I was doing this thing, and there was always somebody else getting more than me out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is factual, but to me, I'm not a victim around it. For me, it's like taking this, sharing the archive, the early days of like the Jim French photographs, and some of the photos from the early men that I photographed with in that time. And I love that. I love the images. There's a lot of images that people have never seen before, and then there's a lot of me just pulling my dick out and like just like funny selfies that I used to send to other people. I'm like, I'm just I'm such a tech tard. When I first started the OnlyFans, I had no idea what I was doing. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even have a computer. I haven't had a computer in 20 years. That's
Wow. Oh my
so
God.
crazy.
That is
I've done
insane.
I've done it. I know it's insane. I've done everything on my iPhone.
Oh my
So
God.
I was doing OnlyFans. I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm like, okay, just post a bunch of pictures, of my boner, and it's like, and so that's evolved. I met a photographer, a genius. I'm representing him as a photographer now. His name is Robert Heyman. He's Robert Heyman Iconography on Instagram. He's genius. He and his husband I am collaborating with now. They're my main content creators for the OnlyFans. So we're doing these, we start out kind of in clothes or some kind of something, and then it was stripped down, and then it gets erotic,
Mm-hmm.
and all of this is being explored as we go along too. I will also collab with other photographers. I'm probably going to do something with Ricky Castro as well soon, and whoever I feel a sense with, I'll collaborate with them.
Nice. And
And
if you're watching this interview on YouTube, the images of Tony that you see behind me are two of the images that
Rob, yeah.
exactly that he shot with Robert Heyman. And they're very beautiful. You look amazing.
Thank you. I'll just put a tiny little mention, like, Robert's photography is all about glam. It's all about accentuation and really like making a bigger than life dream. So, there's a little pump up here and there, which is phenomenal and dreamy and fantastic, and I love it. And then Hector, they both shoot the video, but Hector does the main part of the video and does the editing on that. He's amazing as well, Hector. So I love you. And we're just creating amazing stuff, and that's going to be a journey. It's going to continue moving forward with that. Look forward to collaborating like with one-off with other photographers as well. And so I'm open for if anybody wants to talk to me about that, hit me up.
There you go. Well, so we will make sure to link to Tony's OnlyFans in the descriptions on YouTube and on our audio version of the podcast. Sorry, my Zoom freezes occasionally, so I get caught in stupid faces. And we'll also make sure that we tag it up on our Instagram as well, so you can find Tony on his OnlyFans. But is there a name for the OnlyFans? Is it there? Is there like a handle for the OnlyFans?
It's just Tony Ward at. Hello, I totally forgot. Mr. Ward 88. I can't remember. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just forgot.
We'll tag it.
Yeah, the tag is there. You'll see. Dude, I'm 61.
Check in the descriptions.
Yeah. Sometimes this glitches. It's getting better actually now that I'm a sober guy. One thing I just wanted to say also, just real quick. I am like I said, I'm just real quick. I'm representing Robert Heyman as a photographer. Please hit me if you're ever interested in hiring Robert for photography. But I mean, that's a shameless plug. But he's a genius, and he's done like episodic adventures with La Ganja Lestranja as well. Like, has done a whole series of I can't remember what the name of the show is, but he shot like umpteen episodes that is really phenomenal, amazing stuff. And what else? I don't know. Nice. So much. Well, and also my company, just to say, it's Ward Merrill. It's a very, very close friend of mine. I've directed some little projects with in the distant past. And so we're actually going to be representing other artists besides Robert. So that's something that's growing as well. That it's another business that I'm starting. Also, real quick, I'm doing and this is just an early little blurb about what's coming from me. I'm doing an underwear collection, cashmere and probably linen, jock straps, G-strings, and assless underwear, as well as fragrances coming. And I have some hot fragrances coming.
Well, see, there you go. If you want to smell like Tony Ward, then...
Literally, the first one is going to be body odor.
And you also do clothing too, right? But do you still do your clothing line? Yeah,
it's called Disaster Piece. I do collab, not collabs, but if somebody wants to contact me, the way I'm doing it at the moment, I was kind of more PRing that on my Instagram, but I pulled it all off for the OnlyFans. But if people DM me, you could send me something, a hoodie, a t-shirt, whatever, and I'll destroy it. It's called Disaster Piece. It's an evolution of my earlier collection called Six in the Face. I did a punk rock collection back in 2008. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing sneakers, tennis shoes, and all sorts of crazy stuff. I'm going to show you something real quick. Hold on.
Okay. Tony's running off to the side. I'm going to narrate while he's not in frame. We get to see a little bit of hold on.
Just to show you something totally nuts. They're posted on my Instagram, but these are some sneakers that I've done.
There's pins and there's safety pins and
hand stitched. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on there.
Painted and
But that's send me a pair of shoes and I'll bling them out so hardcore you'll go crazy.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I know that you're a busy man, and I don't want to keep you. I mean, I could talk to you all day, it seems.
That's all right. No, it's been fun.
There's a little segment on the show that we like to call the lightning round. These are
Ooh.
answers are meant to be quick off the top of your head, wherever you're at. These are all Madonna-focused questions.
Okay.
But they're very easy. So first thing that comes to your mind, favorite Madonna song?
What's the one from True Blue? True Blue?
Well, there's True Blue, Papa Don't Preach, La Isla Bonita, Live to Tell.
Live to Tell. I love Live to Tell. I love Rain as well.
And well, that's a good one. Favorite Madonna music video? And yes, this can be one that you were in.
Sex. Erotica.
Erotica.
Hands down.
I don't know if you've seen Madonna on tour, if you've seen any of her tours on video, but favorite Madonna tour?
I would say Blonde Ambition.
Nice.
From
Favorite Madonna movie?
Dick Tracy. I like Evita as well, but
she's great in Dick Tracy.
yeah.
And favorite Madonna look, and this can be from a video, a tour, a photo shoot, in person. He's thinking.
I like From Our Time together.
The 90s.
Yeah, I like when she was just really platinum. Right when we met, she was just phenomenal looking.
The 90s were a good time.
Yeah.
I'm perpetually happy that I got to live through the 90s because it was such a good decade. Music, fashion, like everything about it. And I love that the 90s have sort of come back. Like now it's all like a resurgence of the 90s is now like that's the cool thing to do.
I know, isn't that so funny?
So it's a very appropriate that you're, organizing your OnlyFans. So so Tony, tell everyone where they can find you on social.
Okay, so I'm probably going to be doing a TikTok pretty soon, even though I have no idea about that platform. But Instagram and Tony_Ward_official. That's my Instagram. Can you link those in this or not?
I will. I will. Yeah, we will tag you up.
And my Facebook. I'm so bad. I just got banned off of Facebook because I posted like a little quickie video blurb. Those dirty buggers.
That's what you get for showing nudity, Tony. You can't.
I know. I wasn't even nude. I think it was just my bulge in a jockstrap in a quick little video clip. They did not love that.
It's just too scandalous for those prudes over at Facebook.
Yeah. I'm on their watch list.
Yeah. And so we'll tag your Instagram. We'll also make sure that we tag your OnlyFans. Go follow Tony on Instagram and sign up for his OnlyFans so that you can see all of that beautiful photography that he's going to bring our way. Remember, you can follow MLVC on all social platforms at MLVC Podcast. We're on Venmo at MLVC Podcast if you'd like to donate to the show. Also, if you've not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, tick that subscribe button so you never miss a video. Tony Ward, this was amazing. Thank you. Stay where you are. We're gonna end the show, but we're gonna chat a little bit after the episode. But
awesome.
Thanks again. Until next time, everybody, remember, cherish is the word I use to remind me of your love.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Blessed. Thank you.